My theory is that I always had this artist in me, but I just thought I was incapable of it. Probably 80 to 90% of the things that I paint are hands and flowers, usually together. Hands for me they represent active participation. I don't know, I was just always a quiet kid and very sensitive, so anything that was harsh, it was hard to handle it. Yeah, AI is making paintings that maybe look real or whatever, but there's not a human experience in that, and that's what we need the most. We need to feel like we're not alone. There's all kinds of lies that come into our lives at different points, and I was infected at some point with the lie that you don't matter, and so that's what my art kind of comes to speak against. You do matter. You do make the world better by being here. There's a reason that you're put in this place at this time. And you really are a blessing to other people just by existing, just by being who you are.
So Marissa, I had a chance to check out your art, and while checking it out, one of the things I couldn't help myself from doing was feeling.
Ooh.
I feel like your art really invites people to feel their emotions and think about them. But for you, what was the first time art had an effect upon your feelings?
I'm so glad that you said that. Someone else had made the same comment to me recently, and it really means a lot because that's kind of what I'm trying to do, and it really means a lot when that comes across.
Yes.
I guess since I was a kid and watched cartoons,
Yeah.
Art is all around us all the time. And I remember always just being drawn in by it. I don't remember a very specific first time. I do remember, I guess, the first time that I realized that I was sort of into art.
Yes.
It was subconscious. And then I was in Chicago for an internship in college. Nothing to do with art. Also nothing to do with my major either. It's just for the experience, really. And then I had there the opportunity for credit to either do a series of book reports.
Yes.
Or do this big project. And me, being who I am, obviously was the only one who did the big project.
Yes.
But what I did as part of that was real life research into different arts organizations in the city.
Okay.
So I went to a prison arts ministry and interviewed the guy that runs that and some different community arts things. And like I said, I don't know how it happened, but I guess my supervisor was in a social work thing. But she somehow kind of caught on that oh, you're into art, so why don't you do this? She gave me the idea.
That's really cool.
So it was just I always say I came into art kind of from the back door.
Yeah.
Because it was not at all a direct path or something that I decided to do. But that's kind of how the interest in it got started, or at least came to my attention.
Yeah. You say it was college. That's pretty dang far into life, though.
I know.
A lot of life has happened for you. So is that the actual first time? When did you ever have the idea, think word in your head, art?
Mm-hmm.
When did that ever go off in your head? Was it actual college?
Well, the one memory that I have as a kid of being kind of drawn into art, we would play the game of life, the board game.
Yes. I've never actually finished, but yeah.
I mean, I always hated it because the way you win is to make the most money. I'm even as a kid, I'm this is so not what life is about, just making a bunch of money and being the winner.
Yeah, for sure.
I remember always getting excited because you would draw cards. You would draw 3 cards randomly to see what your profession would be in the game. And I remember the picture that was on the artist card, and it was the typical guy with a beret and a paintbrush.
Yes.
I would always get excited when I drew that card, and I would always choose it. But I think I shut off in my mind that option from very, very, very early on. I was I'm an art appreciator, but it was just kind of put in a box, I guess. And then in college was when that I kind of gently cautiously started opening it and exploring.
So why the box though. But I guess before you answer that question, let me get to a place to where I understand who you are more. Where'd you grow up? And kind of tell me about, like, kind of fade me into answering that question, because I'm sure the box had to do a lot with just where you were in life, how you were raised, what type of situations you were coming from or in. So can you explain that to me up until why you decided, oh my gosh, that thing's super interesting, but it's not interesting enough for me to pursue?
Well, I am from the middle of nowhere, Arkansas.
Yeah.
Kind of between Little Rock and Bryant, just to give a general idea. But I actually have a lot of creativity that I feel like runs in my family, but never visual art as a point of interest.
Yes.
So I grew up there and went to high school in Bryant, graduated and majored in English at Ouachita. So writing really was the first exploration into the artistic world that I had, that I felt like was for me. I felt like, oh, I can do this.
What type of writing? Was this like narrative writing or just regular? I don't know.
Mostly poetry. Okay. So I do remember a time in a high school creative writing class where we had sections. So the first section was like nonfiction and then fiction and then poetry. Yes. And so the first day of the poetry unit, I think it was the first thing that we ever did was the teacher put a few words on the board, 10 words, and he said, choose 3 of these words and include them in your poem. And you have 10 minutes or whatever. And I just wrote something. And when it was done, I read over it and I was like, did that just come from me? That's so cool. It was like an out-of-body experience. Yeah, to put a dramatic term to it. But just kind of got lost in it and then read over it. I'm like, wow, this is actually really good. And so that always came naturally to me. And from that point on, it came naturally to me. And I was in a few anthologies and published my own poetry book a few years ago. What? Okay. So you were pretty deep into poetry before you. Okay. I guess you could say that. Yeah. Okay. Are you now realizing this too? Because we're talking about it. Is this your first time? Well, I mean, yeah, you're right. That's so funny. I guess it feels like a past life to me. Yeah. Because I have really kind of deprioritized it for several years. First, for just being busy, I guess. And then going into the visual art side, it's like, I've always wanted to combine them more. Yes. But it feels like it's so much work already to make a painting. I'm still working to get to a point where it feels natural to just paint something and then doesn't feel like overly putting pressure on myself to work the poetry into it as well. So did you go from poetic writing to visual art because you have feelings that you felt you couldn't express fully within the poem space, or was there something else completely that got you to switch? Because I mean, both of them, I mean, poetry is so interesting because sometimes you have poems that kind of nudge you in a way of how the writer wants you to feel. And sometimes it's super direct. Like they're trying, it's very clear what they want you to get, what they want you to see. But with art, it's really up to interpretation. You look at it and you interpret what that means to you. How does that make you feel? What does that make you think about? So why did you switch from one to the other? Or is there, how did that happen? Well, looking back, my theory is that I always had this artist in me, but I just thought I was incapable of it. And so poetry was almost like, oh, this is something I can do. I remember being a little kid and hanging out a lot at my grandma's house. She had this little dog, and I would sit there with a piece of paper, and I did this so many times. I was like, okay, today I'm going to draw this dog. And this time it really is going to look like the dog.
Oh my gosh.
And so I would sit there and just focus on the dog and look at the dog and think about the dog.
Yeah.
And then like it's so seriously just like, okay, I see that the dog has a body. Circle.
Yeah.
I see that the dog has 4 little feet, 1, 2, 3, 4 sticks, and then a tail and then a head. And then I would look at it like, this does not look like the dog. So it was kind of the opposite experience that I had with the poetry later on, where I'm like trying so hard to make it happen. And then it every time turns out bad.
Okay.
And I never learned that skill of seeing in the way that an artist has to see in order to make something representational. And so I had this thought of, okay, well, that's not for me, throw it out. And poetry was something that I just discovered later on in life that I was interested in and that I could do. So it was like, okay, I couldn't do that. I can do this, so let's go with it. And then the visual art part came in. It was like 2018. I was living in Honduras at the time.
Okay.
And for some reason got interested in art, and I guess YouTube just threw these tutorials at me. I'm like, oh, maybe I can try it.
Well, and also to be fair, Honduras is a beautiful place.
Yeah.
So how can you not feel artsy?
I know, it's so
just
inspiring.
wanting to
just
capture
being
what
there.
you see. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, the mountains and
So beautiful.
the people. Yeah. So I don't know. I guess I was just looking for a hobby or something, and I started that and kept on for a few years. And by the time like 2020 came around, I got to the point where I felt like, okay, I have a basic grasp of how to draw, kind of how to paint, but I came to terms with the fact that I really had this desire to be an artist professionally.
Okay.
And I was afraid to admit that even to myself, because once you admit it, then you're like, okay, now I have the pressure to actually take action. And if I don't, I could fail. And
Yes.
there's all this risk that comes with that. But what really was the turning point for the visual art side was end of 2020, I was Googling nonstop, trying to find an art school online that I could do from Honduras.
Yes.
And that I could also afford.
Yeah, for sure.
And I made a list. I was like, okay, if I'm going to be a professional artist, I need to get my skills better. I need something that's online. I need something that I can afford. I'm going to need some kind of mentorship, somebody that's done this before, that's gone ahead of me that I can learn from.
So wise of you. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, where are you without that, and
Yeah.
without some kind of community too? So I made that list, and I think the next day, thank God for Instagram ads in this situation, I got an ad for Milan Art Institute, which was the program that I did online, and now I get to work with them more closely. But that was totally a turning point, because their whole program consists in the promise of 1 year, we're going to turn anyone from a total beginner to someone who already has studied art and has experience, no matter where you are. We'll take you and we will turn you into a professional artist and, get you all prepared, everything you need in 1 year. And the crazy part was all of those things that I wrote on my list, check, check, check,
That's
check.
crazy.
It was insane.
Wow. That's crazy. Okay, so you said the know-how, or kind of how hard you had to work at art before when trying to draw the dog. Was that the reason? So that is the reason why you put art back in the box? When you said you first, kind of maybe got interested, is that why you stuck it back in the box?
Yeah, that was like, okay, well, I can't do it. And I would get so frustrated because I would get these books given to me or just find them laying around. I don't know if you've seen them, that are for kids, that are like how to draw a dinosaur, how to draw a building. I'm like, I don't want to draw a dinosaur. I knew at that point, like, an artist doesn't just learn how to draw a dinosaur like in this particular way. You have to learn how to see in a way that that allows you to draw anything at any time.
Something you said earlier, you talk about the see. I'm glad you said that again, because you said in that moment when you were trying to draw the dog, you were looking at the dog and you're like, okay, I see the dog has a body, circle.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, I didn't know how to see like an artist does. What does an artist see like? Now that you are where you are now, how would you take me back in that situation and you say, okay, you see the body, you draw a circle. What do you see now? How would you approach that differently now?
Completely differently. It's really a left brain, right brain, like right brain activation kind of skill.
Yes.
Which I did not have at all at that point. So what was happening in my brain when I saw the dog was, even though I was trying to break it down into components and parts, it was still this symbolic language, kind of analytical left brain assigning, like, okay, circle. Of course, the feet are going to be 4 sticks. What else would it be?
Yeah.
Instead of really looking at it and seeing the angles and the position of it and perspective, and really, instead of kind of assigning something that you already have in your head as sort of a visual vocabulary, actually looking and seeing what's in front of you and translating that onto the paper.
So I love what you said, because you went from circle to perspective, angle, and even other words, descriptive started coming to my head, like what's the shadow of the dog looks like, what's the shading of the dog looks like. Like all of those are things you just didn't have at that moment. There were tools that you didn't have to even know how to see art, which is so cool to think about. So when you went and you got the education, you then were able at that point to understand how to see, or did that actually come by yourself after you had already went through the program that you say you did?
That came a few years before the program. I was in Honduras for the first time and interning at this ministry, and the intern director at the time gave me a recommendation of a book by Betty Edwards called Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain, which teaches you how to see, and it totally unlocked that whole side for me. And the one exercise that I remember really making sense of it for me was this line drawing of a man sitting in a chair, and it's kind of abstracted, but it's in the book upside down. And the assignment is to draw it just as it is, upside down. And so what that does is makes you put aside what you think a man in a chair should look like.
Okay.
And just watch how the line moves.
Yes.
And follow that pattern.
Wow.
So that was the moment that I was like, oh, I can do this. And so it was a gradual kind of magnetic force towards art after that.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. So can you tell me about the actual type of art that you create? Tell me about some of the pieces that you've done that you loved. We know it's visual art, right? But like, what does that mean? Just tell me about what you create.
Yeah, so I paint in oil and mixed media, mostly oil, but probably 80 to 90% of the things that I paint are hands and flowers, usually together. And that came about also unintentionally. As I was making more and more paintings, I at some point realized, I have a lot of hands here. Apparently there's something about that draws me. And I think that at some point I discovered that the reason I do so many hands and flowers is hands for me really represent a lot. They represent active participation, which for me, I have gone a long time in my life feeling like the best thing I can do for me and for everyone is just to back up and stay out of the way and kind of like be silent and invisible. But
that's actually a very common trait amongst a lot of artists.
Really?
Yeah, I think I hear that a lot. Like artists are a lot of times the type of people who they don't mind being in a room with a lot of people, but they would rather be able to admire it from the corner. Like that type of perspective. Why do you think that is? Or why do you feel like you fall in that place?
I can't speak for all artists because actually I have come into a point where I've seen so many artists that are so diverse and,
Yeah, for sure.
and who they are and how they work and everything. But for me, I don't know. I was just always a quiet kid and very sensitive. So anything that was like, I don't know, harsh, it was hard to handle it. And so there's all kinds of lies that come into our lives at different points. And I was infected at some point with the lie that you don't matter. You're just getting in the way, like back up.
Yeah.
And so that's what my art kind of comes to speak against, and saying you do matter. You do make the world better by being here. And we need you. That's why my sort of catchphrase or tagline is the world needs your fingerprints, because your fingerprints are not the same as anyone else's ever, ever, ever before or ever, ever, ever after you. And there's a reason that you're put in this place at this time. And you really are a blessing to other people just by existing, just by being who you are.
Yes, that's so good. So you said your art is mainly consistent of, you said hands and flowers?
Hands and flowers. Yeah.
What do hands and flowers mean to you?
So hands, the uniqueness of the fingerprints is one thing, how every person is different. And hands, just inviting connection, like you shake someone's hand, you hold someone's hand when you love them. You can serve people with your hands, feed people, all kinds of, I think connection is a big part of it. And flowers are there, I think, kind of to associate the hand and the human. The hand is sort of a symbol for a person, with beauty. And how every flower is different and every hand is different, and the world is better because there are flowers in it, and the world is better because people are in it, and the world is better because you are in it specifically. And that's what I want people to really understand.
Yes. Okay, so art speaks to us a lot, and if you haven't had the chance to allow art to speak to you, I definitely invite you to do that. But it definitely speaks to me. What has art spoken to you the most about yourself? So like, I think of art sometimes as a mirror. You look at it and you expect to feel a certain way you want to feel, but there are some pieces of art that look back at us and tell us something about ourselves. Have you had an experience like that with your own art or even someone else's art?
Yeah, it's really neat when that happens with my own art, because there are times that I make paintings and I'm like, oh yeah, that's great. And other people are affected by it, but I don't really feel the same.
Yes.
And once in a while something comes out that I'm like, oh, this is really hitting something in me. When you say that, the painting, well, I guess if we're talking about art in general, there's all kinds of things I can mention, but thinking about paintings, one that comes to mind is called Saint Peter Penitent, and it's by Guido Remy, I think is how you say his name, back in the old days. But it's just a portrait of St. Peter as this old man, and he's kind of looking up and has tears in his eyes. And it's based on the moment in the Bible when Peter betrays Jesus, and he says the rooster will crow 3 times, and then he's looking back at that and just feeling the depth of his own mistakes and being so truly sorry. And I think what hits me so deeply about it is that authenticity of he's now seeing so much in himself that he didn't see before, and he's letting that come through in his expression.
Wow. Yeah. That's super deep. But I feel like for for someone to fully get what you just experienced, sometimes it sounds like it takes knowing the artist's intent behind that. Because if you don't know the background behind what you just described, I don't know if I would have known or been able to feel as deeply as I can feel. That's probably why it's so important to read those little those little cards right beside it, because I think it'll provide you more context. But in that scenario, like, you know, most people know about that story, so it's easier. What about your own art? You say because it's weird for you when your own art does it. Can you describe a piece of art that has done that for you? Look back at you and told you something about yourself?
Oh, yeah. The one that that I remember that happening the most is one that I made while in Honduras, and it's still there, but it's kind of like a flower sort of blossoming at the bottom and hands coming up, kind of reaching up. It's funny because some people will look at my paintings and be like, come up with something really dark, and I'm like, that's not it at all.
Yeah.
I mean, you can take it however you want, but for me, it was like these hands kind of reaching up, and I started it just because, you know, I liked the imagery, and that's how I start most paintings. I'm just, I like it, I'll paint it. But during that time, I had this really like personal confrontation with someone, and it was the first time like that I feel like I ever stood up for myself in any way. And so that was, I kind of like was on a break from painting, and then I came back to that one, and I realized, I was like, oh, this is what this is about, you know, for me.
Wow.
And I called it Awaken, because that's like, oh, this thing happened, and now suddenly I'm actually like more in touch with myself and having self-confidence and this sort of rebirth in the way that the hands are like coming out of the flower.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Were you just as surprised?
Yes, I was shocked. I was like, whoa.
That's
and it just came in a wave like, oh, this is crazy.
To you, why do you think art matters? Why do you think what you do matters? Because art is, I think, sometimes people can think about like, you know, if the world comes to an end, some of the jobs that will go first. You know, I can think that some people may be like, okay, all the creatives, they have to go. You know, like we need the science people, but why do you think you're fighting for yourself? Why do artists stay, if that's the case at this point?
Artists will be the last to go. It's the one thing that nothing can replace. It's the human element. Yeah, AI is making like paintings that maybe look real or whatever, but there's not a human experience in that. And that's what we need the most. We need to feel like we're not alone. We're not alone in this time, and we're not alone even if we look back into the ages. We can see all of the art that's been created and how it's the same human experience. The situation is different, the technology is different, the cultures are different, but everyone loves, everyone loses people, loses things that they love, everyone grieves, everyone is hungry physically or hungry, you know, on a more emotional level, looking for something deeper. And that's what art does for us.
That's so cool to think about. And I'm a visual thinker. So when you said that, I automatically thought about some scenes that we've seen throughout multiple movies, multiple TV shows, where a person is isolated or something and they're in like a cave or something, right? And typically when they are in these scenarios, like I've never, in my mind right now, I can't think of a situation in a movie or a show where like anyone's been in a cave and they've been happy. So like typically like it's in some type of dark situation. But then they run into cave art and they see like maybe it's like holographic, what do you call it? Hieroglyphics or like just paintings or things or carvings. And all of a sudden they all have this wow light up moment. And when you said that, I thought about that really quickly because I really do feel like the reason why they light up so much is because they see that art and they think, oh, I'm not alone. At least I may be alone in this year, in this point in time, but someone else has been where I am now before.
Yeah.
And like this is a remembrance of that. And I think that really does, even that simple scenario that hopefully no one in real life will actually be into. That's a good scenario. Like there are people who maybe, I'm just thinking of a big city like Chicago. Like they may be feeling so alone amongst the big crowd of people in Chicago. And it's super hard to find something or someone who relates to how they feel in this season of life. And they walk into an art museum and they look at a piece of art and it's the person crying. And they're like, oh, they just start crying because they like, I'm not alone. Like I feel like I'm not alone. How did that make you feel?
That's so true. For me, community is so important. And like you said, it could be real life community that you're interacting with, or just the human community of knowing that you're part of something.
Yes, for sure. Okay, so let's dive into one of my favorite parts of the show. This is called the second layer, and basically this is a part to where we get to know you on a deeper level. So I just asked some fun little questions here. It's called the second layer, and you can answer them if you're willing, ma'am.
All right, let's do it.
Okay, so if I had quietly been watching your journey over the past 2 years, how would I describe the person who's sitting in front of me today?
Ooh. Resilient. The past 2 years has been an interesting time.
Yeah.
So I, after college, I moved to Honduras and I was working in ministry there, and it's coming up on exactly 2 years that I moved back. While I was there, I got married, and so I came back with my husband.
Okay.
And we were starting from like 0 or -0 in every sense. We were like, we don't know what we're getting into. I mean, we're coming back to where I'm from.
Yes.
But we had no stability. We had spent all of our savings on his visa process and the flights just to get there. And we, I knew some people like family and friends, but no one really had like the open space to take us in that we knew of. And so we were like, we're just gonna kind of fly by the seat of our pants and trust that everything works out. There were some rough times. I think at some point during the past 2 years was like the toughest, lowest moment maybe of my life. But the fact that I had hope and faith to just keep going. And what really I find just so that I respect about myself so much looking back is that through all of that, I kept creating. Even though I had no supplies hardly, I didn't have a studio, I didn't have a space, I didn't really have anything but time.
Yes, for sure.
And I needed to make something for myself to just feel like I was doing something and making something beautiful in a tough time. But I also was, marketing that and selling and really working and clawing my way towards what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. What do you think in that time? You said you had hope, and then you had hope and faith. What was your hope in at that point? Like, what kept you going? If it, let's say, because for me, when I'm not feeling happy, it's super hard to create, super hard to be creative. What was inspiring you at that time?
I think people, even though we were kind of isolated, we didn't have a car, and we didn't get to run around so much and see people, but we were staying with some friends for a while, and just the conversations that I had with them, one of them was a therapist, and he talked about, we had a really great talk about how his job was kind of all centered around helping people find meaning in their story and connect those dots and make sense of things. And so that really resonated with me, and that was something that I think came out unintentionally in my work at that time. But what inspired me to just like sit down and paint, one, like I said, I wasn't doing anything else except for worrying and things I couldn't control.
Yes.
So maybe it was like, oh, I can control the way that my pen moves on the paper. So
Yes.
that's something. Really, I think I'm at the point where, you know, that phrase people say, like, I've seen too much. I can't go back. I don't think there will ever be a time in my life that I'm not creating, because it's just an impulse that I can't
For sure.
hold back.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I can't not create at this point.
Yeah.
You know, who would I be?
Yeah,
What would I do? How would your daily life look different if money was no longer a concern?
Oh my gosh. Hopefully I would be less stressed out.
Yeah. Hopefully.
I'm a very anxious, worrying sort of person, so that might not be the case even if I had all the money in the world.
Yeah.
But I think I would get out more. I've gotten to a point now that I'm in my 30s where I'm like, I need to control things. I feel like I'm not quite the same explorative, adventurous person that I was when I was 22. I was like, let's go move to a new country. Now I'm much more aware of the dangers in the world and the obstacles that could get in my way of what my goals are or whatever. And I just worry too much about it. So hopefully, I think what I would do is just be like, well, if something goes wrong, it doesn't matter, and be able to put that away and like travel or I think just even traveling around Arkansas, just coming out and seeing something different. I'm always worrying like, well, we have to work and we have to do this and we have to do that. So probably just explore a lot more, like travel back in time to have a different attitude like I did when I was younger.
You should look up something called the let them theory. Have you heard of this before?
I have heard of it briefly.
Yeah. I won't explain all of it now, but basically it's just a way, like a mindset shift of how you can live life a little bit differently with less stress about things you have no control over. I just did an episode about it on Cheerful Thoughts, actually.
Nice.
But it's not really sad. But yeah, you should check out the Let Them Theory.
Yeah.
Okay. If your soul had an age, what would it be and why?
I think my mind would be my own age because of all the worrying, but my soul, probably like 8.
Okay.
I think because there's just a wonder about that age. You're to the point where you're very aware of things. You're not like a toddler, it's just in their own world.
Which is so cute.
It is so cute. Yeah, you would know.
Yeah.
But when you're that age, you're like, you learn to read.
Yes.
The world is just open to you, and everything is so interesting.
Yes. I like that answer. My friend. If you lost everything tomorrow, what's the first thing you do?
Pray.
Yeah.
Cry. I don't know. I don't know what else to do besides pray in times like that. It's like a reminder that, okay, you cannot control everything. It actually might, I don't even want to say that could be a good thing, but it could be, there's a certain relief that comes with that. Like, okay, I come back to the truth that I'm not in control and there's something bigger at play here. And it's going to be okay.
One of the things I talk about in another episode, not on this podcast, but another one, but is, talking about the fruit of the Spirit, whether it's someone who, believes religiously or not, this can still apply. When you think about the fruit of the Spirit, you can think of, and name some of the ones I'm not remembering, if you can remember any of them. It's like love, joy, peace, kindness, forgiveness, self-control. I want to say there's 9 total, so I'm missing out 3 more. But you have these fruit, right? And what happens is a lot of people think that you just are getting, like they're fall into your hands.
Yeah.
But for me, I've learned in my short life, 28 years, is that these are actually experiences a lot of times, not all the time. These are experiences that you get and you gain the fruit. So like you were starting to say, oh, I think it may actually be a good thing that sometime when we go through those, it is, because then in that time when that happens, we're given the opportunity to gain a new fruit. So maybe, if someone's like, oh my gosh, I'm always going through stressful situations. This is so terrible, blah, 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 blah. Well, maybe that's an opportunity for you to get peace. If you decide to take a turn this time and say, you know what? I have no freaking control over what's going on in this situation. And if I do have control, then I'm just going to work on that one thing. Then you find peace. Like you're able to lay down at night and you go to sleep without medicine, those types of things. And so for me, that's kind of what I'm walking in. I mean, I've been walking my life this way for a while, but now I'm really trying to be mindful when I'm going through hard situations or even good situations. Like, what fruit, what type of thing can I get from this? So if I lost everything tomorrow, probably what I do too.
Yeah. What else can you do?
Cry and pray. Yeah. I mean, because what else can you do? Stress. What's one thing you wish more people knew about you?
Ooh. I don't know. I guess I always have been a pretty quiet person, but
until you came on a podcast.
It's like I know. I'm like, I'm gonna go and just sit down and talk for an hour or whatever. Can I tell you a funny story?
Yeah, please.
When I was a kid, I was probably like 5 or 6. There was a big tornado that came through and hit like right where we were, and tore up, the whole yard. Thankfully, the house was fine, but the news reporters came out to do a story on it, and I saw them interviewing like my grandma and whatever, and I was like, I want to be on TV. Interview me. And so they sat me down. They got the cameras all ready and the sound and whatever, and they asked me, so tell us your name, whatever. And I said my name, and then they said, what was the tornado like for you? I don't know, some question. Yeah. And they gave me the microphone, and I was like, total silence. And they really tried. That's
so funny.
And I was like, I just clammed up. I was, I don't know, shy. And then as the days passed, I was still getting excited to see myself on TV. I thought they were still going to air that thing. I was like...
They didn't?
No, because I just sat there. Well, they aired the story, but not my interview, because I was just sitting there looking at the camera. I still got to see myself on TV playing, though, as B-roll. But I was like, they interviewed me. I literally sat there and didn't say anything.
That's so funny.
So I've realized that I've changed a lot since then. And I think what I've realized about myself, and what I guess I would like other people to realize, is that even though I am slow to speak, I do have things to say.
Oh, that cut deep. That's so good. Wow. That's a perspective shift for people, because a lot of times, I know I used to be this way and I had to change. And I dramatically changed the opposite way now, to where I get too interested in the quiet person in the room. I'm like looking for them.
They're like, back off.
Why are they so quiet? What's going on in your mind? What do you have to say? Because typically they do. Like a lot of quiet people, they have so much going on in their brain, and I'm just like, I get stressed not knowing what's going on in their head. So I'm like, talk to me. But yeah, so I've had to learn that a lot of times, and I'm curious for you if this is the case, it's better to, instead of not talk to that person, create an environment that allows them to feel safe, comfortable speaking.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does.
And do you think that's true, I guess? Or would you prefer that over someone just saying, she's a shy girl, I'm not going to go talk to her at all?
Yeah, I do agree. I mean, I think the universal quiet person introvert experience is that an extrovert just kind of like latches onto you, and that becomes your friend, and then you get friends through them. That's what happened to me.
Yes.
But yeah, having that space to feel open, even in like a family environment, where we're so like constantly attached and entertained by our phones.
Yes.
Sometimes I'm like, I'll want to say something to someone in the room, but they're already like wrapped up in something, and I'm thinking, well, it's not that big of a thing to like draw their attention away from what they're doing and then say it and then be like, oh, blah blah blah, and then go back. It's so much work. That's why I kind of envy that era before smartphones and TVs, where people just organically shared whatever came to their minds. Yeah,
I feel like I'm gonna go ahead and switch out of this. I feel like we're in a world now where we really do feel like if we're trying to talk to someone, we're interrupting them.
Yes.
Like we can't talk to someone without. And I get it, because I know that I make other people feel that way too. Mm-hmm. And it may not be because I have a phone in my hand all the time. It's mainly because I always have something going on that people just feel like they're interrupting something in my life to just talk to me. And I just feel like that's not good. Yeah. Like if you're living in a world where you feel like every time you go, you want to talk to someone, you're interrupting something they're already doing. Most of the time it is them on their phone, them working, them doing something. And I think it's important to put things down and make someone feel like they can talk to you.
Yeah.
Like they can just have an experience, a thought with you, share something with you. And that can be hard for busy people. I mean, it's hard for me. But I think really what that looks like, let's say, for instance, you go into a coffee shop and, you see someone, or, you're just not going there to work, but you're just going there to just have a cup of coffee. How about you don't sit on your phone that time and you just look around? I don't know, look at what's in front of you, or you go out into nature. How about you don't play music this time?
Yeah. Make eye contact with people.
Well, how about you wave at people on the path? How about you look at the actual beautiful mountain in front of you, the beautiful stream while you're on that walk or that hike? You don't always have to have inner distractions.
Yeah.
That's really what it is. It's distractions. And so, I don't know, just feel like I do admire that time before. Now, I am maybe a little bit too young to know what that time really looked like, because smartphones have been all around ever since I've known my friends.
Yeah, right. But I mean, that's probably the number one thing that I miss about living in Honduras, especially since we were living in a small town. Everyone knows each other. The culture is very chill. And people's schedules and calendars aren't like fully blocked out for months and months. Like literally it was a huge culture shock coming back. And if I wanted to make plans with a friend, this is a friend, not like a business meeting or something.
Yeah, for
like,
sure.
Hey, let's get together. Okay, I'm free 2 Wednesdays from now. And I'm like, what the heck?
Nuts.
Whereas in Honduras, we had, we just have friends like call us out and be like, hey, I'm coming over. Okay, come on. And there were times when I would come home and open the door and there's the living room is full of people. I'm like, hey guys. And I love that.
Yeah. There's different friend levels. And I think it's important that everyone knows this, because I used to always be the person that's like, you're not my friend. You're not my real true friend if I just can't walk in your door at any time and be like, hey, how are you? And I have to like freaking schedule a call and get it on your meeting, or like see when you're free to have coffee. Like, you're not my friend. But I realize that there are levels to friendship, but your deepest friends, like I know now that if I'm going to call you like a best friend, yes, that is important for me that we are on that level to where it's like, I text you at 5:00, like, hey, what you're doing for dinner? And you're like, I don't know, want to figure it out together? Like, those are your best friends. Yeah. But then outside of that, you just have your friends, right? Maybe you do need to schedule a time with them. Maybe you do like, and that's okay. But I do think it's important that we do have that first level. I think a lot of people don't have that first level anymore. And I think that's the problem. So they just live with people who are on this second level friendship. And there's no reason why they feel so alone. Because when you have those first level friendships, we're able just to go to their house randomly. Hey, what are you doing for dinner? Hey, I'm going to pick up Taco Bell on the way home. You want me to grab your family something too and we just hang out? Yeah, sure. Well, then you stay at 10 o'clock and you have deep conversations that you didn't even plan for. Like that doesn't happen all the time on second level friendships where you have to go to a restaurant together. You have to get on their schedule, yada, yada, yada. So find those first level friendships. And I'm not saying that
no, but I'm taking
to you,
it
but
to
I'm
heart
saying that
too.
to everyone because it was super. That's why we moved from Dallas. It was super hard to find those first level friendships. And you have to have them.
Yeah,
Super important.
yeah.
And I will say only about, realistically, for me, everyone's differently. But I'm pretty extroverted, but I'm also an introvert. But even being someone who's extroverted, I can only have 3 people on that first level before I just kind of get burnt out. So find that level that works for you as an individual and then work to get there.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's good advice.
Are you ready for a fun little game we have before we close out? This is called Would You Rather?
Ooh, fun.
And so I'm going to give you a scenario and you have to say which one you would rather do. Okay. Are you ready? Okay. So number 1, would you rather explore every hidden mural in Arkansas or every trail with a scenic outlook?
I feel like that's not even a fair question. Oh my gosh. My instinct is to say mural because art, and because I love just walking around cities. But I think I do that so much already that I would probably opt for the trails.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, both are a vibe.
Yeah.
You can't lose. Would you rather paint your next collection while staying in a quiet cabin in the Ozarks or in an open studio with big windows? With big windows in downtown Fayetteville?
Ooh. That's hard. So it's like an isolated cabin?
Yeah,
with nobody around?
But nature.
But nature.
In the Ozarks, so you're in the mountains. Might see a deer or two.
See, this is where I'm going to surprise myself again and go for my non-stereotypical answer for myself. I think I already spent so much time alone painting that it would be nice to just be in an environment with people. So I would go for the open window one.
That's super cool. Yeah, in downtown Little Rock, I used to live in the lofts, and I loved that experience so much. I felt super creative because I can just jump down and I'm in the riverfront park or whatever. River Market?
Yeah.
I was at the River Market, so I could literally go downstairs and create and then just literally go to the coffee shop over here and then walk a block home. That's was so nice, amazing. Yeah. I love that experience. Okay. Would you rather spend a weekend hopping small town festivals or digging through antique shops across the state?
What was the first one? What kind of festival?
Just small town festivals in general.
People selling stuff on the street and
yeah. Let me read that again. So I did say that word. Would you rather spend a weekend? I think it's just basically would you rather go to small town festivals that are really busy? There's a lot to do. They're not super tiny as far as what's available, but they're tiny in the town size. Or dig through antique shops across the state.
I would go festivals. Yeah. Again, because just people, which every time I say that, I'm like, who am I?
I know.
What's
you're a new person, basically, based on what you talked about.
Literally. It's so real. And I think Honduras changed me a lot in that way.
Yeah.
My social battery was pushed to the extreme, and now I'm endurance socially is much higher.
Why do you think that is?
Well, because everyone's in contact with each other all the time. And because it's a small town Honduran culture, I had to learn at that point how to not offend people just by walking down the street, because people will get offended even if you've never seen them before. At least when I was there, it was that way. If you don't, not even just make eye contact, not even just smile, but if you don't literally say hi to them, a lot of people will feel bad about it and be like, oh, that person is so stuck up. They don't even talk to you.
Well, it also doesn't help that you're white woman.
I know, sticking out like a sore thumb. Okay.
Would you rather eat your way through the best catfish joints in Arkansas or sample every locally made jam, jelly, and honey?
I think neither of those is super interesting to me, but I would go more for the honey and jams and the catfish.
Yeah.
I can only do so much catfish, I think.
Yeah, that's true. And you can do so much for honey and jam.
Yeah.
You can do like you said, I think you said literally for breakfast you had toast or something. So,
exactly.
You can do that with it for sure.
Yeah.
Would you rather display your work in the historic courthouse gallery or live paint at a crowded outdoor street market in Little Rock?
I think I display in the courthouse gallery, just because it's less work, I guess.
Yeah,
once
for
it's up,
sure.
it's just there and everyone can come see it. Whereas painting live is fun, but it's also a lot of work, and if it's outdoors, especially the elements to deal with, which is a fun challenge. But
have you done that before?
Yes, not too often, but I did it a couple of times in Honduras. One time was outdoors and one was indoors.
What's the biggest art project piece that you've done before?
I did
not big as in scale, but biggest deal to you or to others.
I guess I did a collection of commissions for a coffee shop in Honduras. I don't know if they ever put it up or not because I left after that, but they were big in scale and it was a big deal to me.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's cool. Cool. Well, thank you so much, Fran, for coming on the show. Yeah. I do have a question for you. One, I want to just roll out the carpet for you for a second and allow people to know, first, where are some places they can maybe go see your art now? Whether it's in person or online. And then two, the online part, how can people follow along on your journey? Do you have any exciting things coming up that you would like to share? Anything at all? The floor is yours.
Okay. When is this airing?
This will be, okay, let me do some math. I think you're number 8 or sometime in the summer.
Okay.
I think maybe end of May.
Okay, perfect.
But sometime in summer.
Yeah. So for the whole month of June, I'll have a collection up in North Little Rock, downtown, in a place called the Innovation Hub. I have a little gallery in there. And then July, I'm actually coming back to Fort Smith for Art on the Border, which will be July 18th and 19th. As far as in person, that's all I know of so far for this year. But online, you can find me at marissathornberry.com, and that's where I have all of my artwork posted. And the best place would be on my email list, because that's where you get first access and first views at things.
Yeah, so for sure.
To really stay updated, or follow me on Instagram, marissathornberry.art.
Thank you so much for driving down. I appreciate it, and I hope the audience appreciate it as well. Yeah. See you guys in the next one. Bye.
Thanks.